Whenever we do a design for landscaping, this one was a full changeover design on this property, you always have to have in your back of mind who's going to be taking care of it, because you can go from one garden that is very low maintenance to another garden that is much more maintenance, and they all have their great aspects. This client did not want a garden that had a lot of maintenance, but they didn't mind coming out and cutting a flower, sweeping the walk, little things like that. And so what we did is we made this property relatively maintenance free. Obviously it will need some mulching, but down the road even that will go away because we planted it thick enough where the plants will grow and they will need very little mulching. Some things will need to be pruned once a year, and they could have a gardener come in and do that. It would be a real simple pruning. For this size garden, it would take maybe 2 hours to clean the whole thing up. And so this, I would rate this as a low maintenance garden. You've got the perennials that need to be cut once a year. You've got the evergreens that would need to be nipped to keep their shape. And then you have your deciduous plant material like hydrangeas, crepe myrtle, viburnums, and they would need a once a year pruning because you just don't want them just getting gangly and taking over a garden. We're talking about maintenance in general. We do other gardens where it is much more complicated, and owners want that. They want blasts of color all the time. They want shapes, different shapes, and so in those gardens, you know, we usually pack them in a little bit tighter so they get away from no weeding and stuff like that. But there would be more pruning. I mean, when we put 3 or 4 different perennials together, it's nice to do a little pruning throughout the season on them. They do better, they get more flowers and things like that. But that's all that all starts in the design process. When we're talking to a client, we ask them how much maintenance. A lot of them say none, but we tell them that's impossible. And then the other ones that we say we can go pretty minimal maintenance, but we also can go a little bit more, and you get this different characteristics to your garden out of doing something a little bit more with maintenance on it. But there's no maintenance-free garden. Even the simplest garden has some maintenance. But that's only one characteristic in our designing, but we do take that into account. Basically, the way they are thinking about using it, it's living space. It's 2 stories with living space on the first floor, and they have a nice deck on the back, but they wanted access to the whole property from the outside, and it was a very steep slope leading away from the walkway to the patio, sitting area in the back, and so they definitely wanted that constructed as a way to get down, and we suggested doing these 4 by 15, 16 inch steps and with pavers in between. And then we got talking about plants, and she showed me her last house, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was a house with lots of different interesting plants, and it had lots of different things happening. It was in the woods, so it was a shady garden, and part of this garden is relatively shady on the side. We designed that all in, and we complemented what she wanted, and it worked out fabulous as far as the plant material that we choose, the different seasons that you get out of the plants. Our main objective on the planting here was they were happy with the setting. There is a walkway public walkway that goes 30, 40 feet away from the house that goes through there. But most of their sitting outside is actually up on their deck. What they wanted most of all is they wanted a comfortable access from the front walkway to the back. And they wanted a very nice landscaped yard that had multi-seasons of interest. And so what we did is we did a 4-season garden. 90% of our gardens are 4-season. We try to get something that's happening every season. On this one in the spring, I'll start with the spring and go through winter. The springtime we have, you won't notice it now because we're not in spring, but we have hundreds of bulbs happening up near the front where they'd be in the springtime. We have emerging plants that have the different foliages coming out, and you have the things that are popping out of the ground, the different perennials. They're not showing any color, but you can see all the new growth. And we have ornamental grasses that are cut back and they're starting to come up. And then as the season progresses to summer, the perennials are in full bloom. They're looking gorgeous. The grasses are growing and you're getting the wispiness of them blowing in the wind. You get the hydrangeas that are in full bloom. So summer's pretty easy. Everything is lush. I mean, you just feel like you're in almost a tropical rainforest. And then you start getting into fall. And fall is a great season with this garden. The bigger plants that are deciduous, the leaves, they're starting to turn different colors. The grasses are starting to turn a tan, and the seed heads are much more prominent. And you just get that great feeling of the changing of the season. And then you get into wintertime. And in the wintertime, the plants that are not evergreen, they're deciduous, so they've dropped their leaves, so you get the structure of their branches. The grasses we always leave up through the wintertime, so they're a very nice light brown color, and they look great in the winter. And even some of the perennials, instead of cutting them down to the ground, we leave them up. The coreopsis turn black, and it just makes a nice contrast with the surroundings. And then the structure of the weeping Japanese maple or some of the evergreens is great. I mean, it's they pop in the wintertime because they're the only thing that's green. And then the cycle goes to spring and we start right over again. So it's a gorgeous garden, and you can always add accents to the garden. This client happens to love planters, and so she has two nice big urns by the front door, full of color. In the shade back here in the back, she has coleus plants in the planters, and it just makes the space look like a little room. And that's what we actually try to do with all our landscapes. We try to develop different spaces, and we call them outdoor rooms, but the more spaces you have, the more fun the property is.
For this project, we had to deal with both the HOA and then the township. This is Kennett Township, so they have some regulations on non-permeable surfaces. So for here, we had to actually do a permeable surface. So all the joints are permeable. The water actually goes down into the base, and it's like a big well underneath it there. So that satisfied the township for their requirements. For the HOA, we had to draw up a plan and then get it approved through the HOA. Sometimes they can be a little bit of sticklers. They have different colors that you can use, different, there's a lot of different HOAs and regulations on that. When we get up into Pennsylvania and Kennett and up towards Philly, they have a lot more regulations on the non-permeable surfaces. So depending on the size of the lots, you're allowed to have so many square feet of non-permeable surface compared to the size of your lot. So we did a couple up in Pennsylvania, and we actually had to cut out a part of the driveway to make the walkway bigger. We always figure it out, and there's always a way.